I'm Mary Kate Mackey, and I'm your host for Elders and Families. Do families have to be torn apart when trying to come to decisions about elder care? Do power struggles have to occur, or even legal and financial hassles? Or can families come together and work in such a way that frictions are reduced? Let's take a look at the Kramer family and see how they deal with their situation.
These are supposed to be the golden years. Don't believe it. I can't do nothing for myself. Watch stupid TV. It's my heart, and I got some emphysema.
My dad's in pretty bad shape, but I'm almost more worried about Mom. I'm going to try and get the family all together and see if we can't work something out. 'Cause Mom is killing herself.
Well, I'm just tired all the time. I do the best I can. John told me not to tell anyone, but the other day I burnt the skillet. I forgot it was on the stove, and I just don't do things like that. Maybe the meeting Joey wants to have will help. I just need a little bit of help keeping up.
Well, my mother and father have been married for 58 years. They know what's best for them. They'll work it out. Yeah, they're getting older, but I think they're doing okay. Making a fuss over it is going to be a big mistake.
My pop won't let anyone but my mom help out. His body is giving out and he really resents it. He's mad at her all the time. It's crazy. He's getting worse because he needs more help. My mother's getting worse because she thinks she has to do everything.
Well, I know John and Marge are having a rough time right now, but I don't see that that's any reason to put my brother in the nursing home. It might be easier, but is that any way to treat your father?
Well, we've been neighbors for 27 years. So lately, I've just been helping out around the house. Can't do too much, though, because John gets upset. He's a very proud man.
I just wish I had some strength. I can't do nothing for myself. Marge! Marge!
The Kramers are like many families facing elder care. They see the same situation, only in different ways. The goal of the family meeting, which is what we'll be discussing today, is to reconcile those differences and come up with a plan that meets everyone's needs. And incidentally, the techniques that we'll be discussing will work even in a one-on-one situation where, for instance, there'll be an adult child taking care of an older single parent. So, let's begin.
Our panelists for today are Vicki Schmall, Hazel Sims, and Stephen Merwin.
All right, Vicki Schmall, how do we start planning a family meeting?
Anyone who is likely to be affected by the decision should be involved. This would include siblings, spouses, and other family members.
And don't forget close friends and housemates, neighbors.
And most important is to include the older person for whom plans are being made.
Well, let's see how Joey Kramer goes about making his family plans.
Here's your bowl, Mom.
Thanks. Don't forget to go do your homework.
Honey, I hope I got everybody on this list for the meeting.
Let me see.
I do not want to call David.
He's your brother, honey.
He's a pain.
Yeah, but he's got to be there. He's part of the family.
Yeah. He's probably going to be mad because it wasn't his idea.
Hello?
David, Joey here. Yeah, the meeting with Mom and Dad is on for Friday.
What meeting?
The meeting I called you about last week? You know, Mom and Dad are not doing so well.
Joey, of course Mom and Dad are not doing so well. They're old. What do we need a meeting for? Why don't we just do whatever needs to be done? Just do it.
That is the whole point of the meeting, is to figure out what to do.
Are you calling Aunt Millie on this? You know, she's really burned because she thinks you want to put Dad in a nursing home.
And I hope you told her we were not thinking of doing that.
Not exactly. You're running the show on this, aren't you?
Great.
What?
Hey, I gotta go. Friday, Mom and Dad, 7:30. See ya. He is such a jerk sometimes.
Okay, Hazel Sims. It looked like Joey really wanted to exclude David from the process. What do you think about that?
It's impossible. The whole family needs to be there. The whole family needs to make plans so that everyone agrees with whatever is done, so that down the line there aren't problems.
That makes sense.
This also helps to avoid later undermining of the decision. A person should not be excluded because of personality, geographic distance, or financial constraints.
It's very crucial to include people who live out of the geographical area. There may be someone who lives on the East Coast who wants at least a telephone call to find out what is going on and how they can be a part of it. And also it's important to keep them abreast, if they can't make the meetings, to at least know what is going on.
I understand that happened with you.
About a year ago when my mother had her stroke, we called her sister who lives in Florida, and she couldn't actually attend the meeting that we had, but she wanted to be included. And so we just called her, and that ended up being very beneficial to everybody because she was very important. And it's good to keep people who live out of the area abreast of what is happening, what the progress is, and where the meeting is going from there.
We have to stop and think too is that parent for whom the plans are being made, their relationship with the son or the daughter, no matter how they feel about themselves, I mean against each other or to each other, it's the parent they're planning for, and it's how the parent feels about them and they feel about the parent.
That's a good point, yeah. Well, okay, so now we know who's coming. So what happens next?
It's really important that everyone is clear in terms of the purpose of the meeting to help avoid misunderstandings.
Oh, misunderstandings, yeah. It sounds like Millie and Joey may have some misunderstandings.
I'm not going to any meeting to help plan to put my brother in a nursing home.
Aunt Millie, we want Dad to stay in his own house.
Well, why didn't your brother David tell me that?
I have no idea.
I just don't think John is so bad that he needs to be put in a nursing home.
We have no intention of putting him in a home. Come on, have you seen Mom lately? She's exhausted.
I know, and I've offered to help her.
I know you have. Look, would you please just come over to the house on Friday? We need to do some planning. We've got to figure out how we're going to help him.
I don't have much money, and I can't do any heavy work.
Millie, all we want you to do is come and talk. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Stephen Merwin, any tips for running a successful meeting?
I believe that location is real crucial because you're looking at an issue where the elder parent may feel very threatened. You know, it's the first time where a lot of the family members there are friends, and the focus is on that elder parent. So it needs to be in a place where that person feels really comfortable, whether it's that person's home, whether it's one of the children's home, or maybe a professional's office. But they need to feel comfortable because the focus is on the parent.
I think too that every person there needs to feel comfortable in that no matter what idea they put forth, they shouldn't feel put down. The old brainstorming idea where whatever is said is written down, and no matter how silly it sounds, it goes down and nobody is put down. That's really important, the way I feel about it.
And also another issue too is that the meeting be focused, that it's dealing with the present issue, which is the care that's needed for the elder parent. If there's siblings who have past history, who don't get along, or aunts or uncles, that's not the issue. The issue of the meeting is dealing with the parent and the needs that that parent needs.
As important is remembering that the person who is mentally competent has the right to have control over their life, and particularly if they're not putting other people at risk. I think it's very important too for especially adult sons and daughters to ask themselves, am I wanting my mother or my father to make a change that will really be best for my family member, or is it primarily so that I will worry less?
And one thing I've really found in my experience with my mother is, even though she was ill and recovering from a stroke, she's the same person she's been for the past 70-some years, and she's not going to change just like that overnight. So we need to really honor who these people are and who they've been in their life.
That's right.
Well, the Kramer family seems to be really butting heads, and what if they can never come to any kind of conclusion?
Well, in a case like that, where you very definitely have decided the family is not going to change, they're not going to be able to give in to one another, in that case, you really need to get a facilitator. Somebody who is impartial and has no favorites and can bring the meeting in order.
I think it's important, though, that even when a family does have good relationships, an outside facilitator can be very helpful, because when you're the family member, you have an emotional involvement with your parent that you don't bring the same objectivity that an outside facilitator does.
Well, where do you find a facilitator?
What I found was real helpful for myself when my mother was in the hospital was the social work department. They usually have a lot of list of referrals, people that can facilitate, or at least they can get you in touch with people who can give you referrals.
You said a social work department. What social?
In almost every hospital has what's called the social service department, and in the social service department are medical social workers. And that's their whole thing, that's their whole job, is to give referrals and information to everybody as far as social services that they may need, whether it's agencies or referrals.
So they'd be familiar with elder care specifically?
Yes, and they could give you the numbers to who to contact and where to go.
In their family meeting, the Kramers will be using a 5-step decision-making process.
Well, after we got the date and time for the meeting, my brother Joey asked me to pick up some information on things that we thought we'd need to know about. I called house cleaners, I picked up a best schedule, checked on our community senior meal program, things like that.
Yeah, well, we tried to basically get our hands on as much information as possible. And part of the preparation included trying to get a clear picture of just how bad off Mom and Dad really were. On my lunch hour, I went over to see the doctor. Pop gave me his permission, and the doctor was very helpful. He gave me some pamphlets on heart disease and emphysema. We talked about Mom, too, and I came away with a pretty good picture of what we were up against medically.
I went to the Agency on Aging to find out about conducting a good family meeting. Though they're mainly a referral agency, they gave me some really good ideas. And, I got some stuff at the library, too.
A family needs information in order to make an informed decision. Now, do you think Joey and Dottie have enough information to come to this meeting?
I think they have a good start.
I agree. They have taken an important critical step, and that is getting good medical information in regard to both mother and father and any problems they may be having.
And this is really important, that the family gathers this initial information and then goes to the family meeting, and then they can decide what is the next issue. Where are they going? They know where to go, they have the medical information, and that's a good start.
In the course of the family meeting, the Kramers raised many concerns about the increasing needs of both parents. And at the urging of their mother, Marge, they took up the question of nutritious meals first.
All right, Mom wants to start the meeting off with the question of meals.
Oh, what's the question? I want Marge's cooking.
Then why are we having a meeting at all?
I'm confused.
Hold it. Look, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to proceed in a little bit more organized way.
Yeah, this guy at the Senior Services gave me this meeting guide. I'm going to pass it around and let you all look at it. It's great. What we do is we just write down all the available options. We all come up with our own ideas and just write them down. And no matter how nutty they seem, let's write all the ideas down and nobody say anything about it. Okay? Great. David, would you write down all the ideas, please? Thing for you? Thanks.
No pencil?
No, I've got a pen.
All right. So, Mom's having trouble getting the meals out. She's under a lot of strain right now, and we're going to try and come up with some ideas to help her out. So, I'm just going to open up the meeting to any suggestions.
I can't do the cooking.
Aunt Millie, it's okay. No one expects you to. Just come up with some ideas and try to help us solve it, okay?
I don't know. Hire a cook?
Oh, we can't do that.
Mom, we're going to just write the ideas down now, and then we'll discuss them later, okay? Do you have any ideas, Mom?
Well, maybe. Oh, I don't know. I think someone in the family should do the food.
Do you mean one of us kids?
Now, wait a second.
Come on, give Mom a chance. You mean one of us kids do the meals?
That's just unworkable. I live too far away. I simply
David,
can't
look,
do
just
it.
write it down right now, okay? And we'll discuss it later.
How about the community senior meals program?
All right, good. Anybody else? Ernie?
I can contribute some meals. I cook a mean baked squash.
Well, the Kramers are on their way. So what do you think worked and what didn't?
I think one of the things that really worked for them was they're writing down all of the ideas. And you have to stop and think that sometimes what sounds like a crazy idea might turn out to be a very good idea in the end.
Another thing that's really working too is the fact that both Joey and Dottie are doing a really excellent job facilitating the meeting. They're keeping on task, and they're also staying very neutral and objective, which is really a very important, crucial part.
Okay. Now, the third step in the decision-making process for the Kramers is going to be to evaluate the options. In this step, you take all the options you've written down and you discuss the pros and cons.
Before evaluating the options, it can be helpful if the family will develop criteria against which to measure the options. This might include finances, available resources, family values, and the preferences of Mom and Dad.
Okay, well, let's see how the Kramers are doing.
Okay, is that all the ideas? Last call. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay. So let's discuss the options. We got to come up with an option here that we can afford and that Mom and Dad can agree to.
All right.
So what do we got?
And the first one is hire a cook.
What's the fuss? How about letting your mother cook?
Daddy, Mom's overwhelmed.
Well,
That's
maybe
why.
I should do the cooking.
Mom, that's the problem with you. You want to do everything. The whole point of this meeting is to try
Marge,
and...
I understand how you feel, and I know everybody knows that you want to do the cooking. We're just coming up with a plan right now just to help you out until you can get back on your feet, okay?
Mother Elle is right. You know, we're all here just to help you get back on your feet.
Thanks, David.
Well, we were talking about hiring a cook. What's that going to cost?
Shucks, millionaires are the only ones that have cooks.
No, that's not true. How about Helen Edwards? I bet she'd do it pretty reasonably.
I still think it's too expensive. Would she like my kitchen?
I'm sure she would. I'll call her before we decide and find out what she's going to charge, and maybe we can all chip in a few bucks a week.
No problem. That'd be great.
Okay, so hiring Helen's a possibility. What else we got?
Us kids take turns being responsible for a week's meals.
Well, that would certainly be cheaper.
You kids know what kind of food your father likes.
But wait, I just want to say something before this goes any farther. When Mom was in the hospital with her gallbladder, we all agreed to do the cooking, and I ended up doing everything. Well, I'm just worried that might happen again.
Part of the reason for that was that Joey agreed to it, and then he expected me to do the cooking, and I was working 10 hours at the time, and it was right in the middle of the holidays.
I
so-
couldn't possibly do any cooking.
All right, well, that idea is kind of a wipeout.
Well, the next one is the Community Senior Meals Program.
Yeah, they bring a meal a day during the week.
What kind of food do they have?
Pasta, casseroles?
I don't know.
Besides, who are these people? I don't like the idea of strangers in my house.
Why? You think they're burglars or something?
Now wait. She has a point. If she feels uncomfortable about something, she should be able to say so.
Thank you, Ernie.
Good point on that. What's next?
Next on the list is...
It's me. Now, I know I offered to cook, and I can help out in a pinch, but I'm sorry. I can't do it every day. I'm sorry.
So, in this simple example, the Kramers have discussed the option, and some were eliminated and others remain. So, what do you think of this vignette?
Well, first of all, I like the honesty that is beginning to show in the relationships between the members of the family.
What I see happening is that the family is really beginning to work together, and they're communicating a real caring to their parents, and that's very positive.
Also, something that really struck me was that the family members really acknowledged their limitations, that they weren't willing to take on a commitment that they knew that they wouldn't be able to follow through with. That was really good.
And one of the things that we don't see that could make a difference is if the family delved a little bit more into some of the benefits and some of the limitations of each option.
Well, one of the things I think in this finding out more is they could possibly talk to somebody who has had Meals on Wheels to find out a little bit more what the menus are. But one of the other things that I think was really important is that they are not eliminating Mom, that she has no place in the home, that she still is an important person in that home setting.
I agree, and there's one other thing I think that could have helped out a little bit more would have been some visual aids, like a flip chart that could have had the pros and cons listed in front of everybody so that they could have seen those and got a better idea of what was going on.
Great. Once you've narrowed down your choices, it's time to decide on a course of action and create a plan.
Okay, Dottie's out there calling Helen to see how much she's going to charge. And we got a few ideas here. We can hire Helen for the week, 3 meals a day. It's going to cost a lot, but she does know how to cook the kind of meals that Dad likes. Kids cooking for a whole week is barely hanging in there at this point.
Right.
Senior meals program, they come 5 days a week, but only 1 meal a day, as far as we know. Dad's not sure that he's going to go for the food, and Mom's worried about strangers in the house. And Ernie Cooks is...
Helen says she'll do it for $100 a week, and we pay for the food. She'll cook 2 meals, lunch, and something for you to heat up, and she'll freeze stuff for the weekend. Well, what do you think?
Well, then I can still do breakfast.
Frozen, yeah.
Hey, look, maybe I've got a solution. Why don't we combine some of these options? We could have Helen come in, somebody you're comfortable with. She could do lunch and prepare something for dinner. That way we've got the steadiness of the senior meals program. Dad gets the food he wants, and you can do breakfast so you keep your hands in. And so it'll be a little cheaper. On the weekends, us kids will take turns being responsible for the food. I won't cook, but I'll be responsible.
David, you never cease to amaze me. And, well, as far as the food goes, the food probably won't cost much more than it does now. And as far as Helen's money goes...
I can pay.
Well, okay, great. And if you find you can't, I think we can probably chip in and help out. So, does that sound okay, Mom and Dad?
It's worth a try.
Well, I think we got a plan.
So now the Kramers have come up with a plan. Any comments?
I was really impressed by the flexibility of thinking of the family members. They came from very diverse opinions and ideas, and they've compromised, and they're really working together.
Well, and I like the idea that, if you notice, they said, "Is that all right with you, Mom? Is that all right with you, Dad?" Which gave them a feeling that they had a part in what was being planned.
Yes.
I think by asking Mom and Dad, too, that they have increased the willingness of Marge and John to really give the plan a try and to be committed to it.
Yeah.
Which is really important because there may be other options that they may have to come back again in a family meeting and revisit what they've done already.
So once the family has come up with a plan, the next step is to act on the plan.
Am I happy with the food arrangement? I don't know. I think Helen is a good cook. We'll see.
Well, I know Helen, and I'm not afraid she's going to rob us, but I don't know. I just feel funny having someone in the house.
The wife and I have decided to try this out for 2 weeks. If it doesn't work, we'll need another meeting.
So the Kramers have finally come up with a plan. Okay, will it work?
No one knows for sure, but it has a good chance of success because of the process the Kramers went through.
And the fact that they did this 2-week time period to really test things out, I think, is really important, because then if it doesn't work, they can come back and revisit the issue.
Well, that's to their advantage, because most people say, "Oh, we have a plan, this is it, and that's it." But this group has decided we have it 2 weeks. If not, we can always come back.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too. And now we'll be right back for our wrap-up. Now I'd like to go over the 5 steps in the decision-making process. Step 1, you gather the information. The more, the better. Step 2, identify the options. Brainstorm ideas, write them down with no critique. Step 3, evaluate the options. Go over the pros and cons of each idea. Be realistic. Step 4, create the plan. Decide which option or combination of options will work best for the elder's situation. Step 5, act on the plan. Make the arrangements to make the plan work. Remember that it's always best to set a time limit so you can reevaluate the plan and make adjustments or changes as needed. So that's our show for today. I would like to thank our panelists, Vicki Schmall and Hazel Sims and Stephen Merwin. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Thank you.